everyone, what's up? This is Dan. I'm your host, and you're listening to the Internship Podcast. First I have Matt with me. How you doing, Matt?
Good. How's it going, Dan?
It's good, Matt. So today is the first day that we're recording a little bit. We're testing that out, and Matt wasn't a big fan. I didn't get his consent, so he wasn't very happy with.
I'm better. I was a little tired. I got some black tea in me, so
yeah,
we're
nice.
Okay.
Nice. So we're going to try this recording thing. We're going to have our YouTube channel set up so that if you guys want to watch it and read the words versus listen while you're in class, that's cool. So today, to dive in, obviously like, share, tell people about us. But to dive in today, we want to talk to you guys about your work history as you get out of school. And really your first few jobs, like why is that important in your career, and as you move on with new jobs, like when you go interview, they're going to look at your work history and they're going to say, hey, this person's good because they have a solid work history and they're loyal to a company, or they're going to say, hey, this person's work history is shitty. They work somewhere 3 months here, 6 months there. They're either just chasing a dollar or they're just not a fit for any of these companies, or, so either you're not loyal or you suck. And so we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about work history as you guys enter this workforce and your careers, because it is super important as you consider opportunities, not maybe in the next 6 months, 2 years, but 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road. They're definitely going to look at that. So being a recruiter, Matt, would you agree? Do you come across candidates where you're like, hey, this person work history looks shitty, I'm going to pass on them?
Yeah, I think anybody's going to look at that. There's longevity is always looked at, and it's okay. I do want to say, to kind of jump ahead to the flip side, it's okay to leave a job like early, right? Like
how early?
Honestly, it just depends. I'd say if you give a job 90 days and you are sold on a bill of goods and the culture is just atrocious, then there's times when you can, right? Like obviously you'd want to tough it out as long as possible. But if they tell you the position's going to be one thing and it's completely different and nothing's changing, it's okay. But it should be a learning experience for you to, that next time, do your due diligence, look at Glassdoor, find out what's going on, learn as much as you can about the company before stepping into the role, because when you start to compile these 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, less than a year, whatever it is, that's when your resume really starts taking a hit, and that's when guys like me and you and every other recruiter, whether corporate or otherwise,
or hiring manager or CEO
or hiring
or
manager
whatever,
or whoever, sometimes a recruiter will look at you, but if the hiring manager, if they pass the resume to a hiring manager, the hiring manager is going to say no.
Yeah. And so I think you said a key word there that jumped out and that is super important, which was compile, right? So if it happens once, not a big deal. Okay. But make sure all your other jobs have had decent work histories. And you guys are just starting your careers, so like I'm not saying you need to work somewhere for 10, 15 years. Actually, that might even be a detriment financially. But I definitely think that, and so I guess to your point, do you even put that on your resume? Like, let's say it's only 3 months. Would you even put that on your resume?
It depends. How long is your career history? Like if the people that are typically listening to this, if it's 17 to 24 years old, maybe. If you got something out of it, maybe you got a little, maybe it was just because this is all what we always talk about, but this is our background. Maybe it was sales. So maybe you got some good cold calling experience out of it and it was your first job. So it's like, hey, I've got a little bit of cold calling experience under my belt. I can use this to leverage my next position in a better company, in a better position. Then yeah, maybe.
And I would agree with that.
If it's like in the middle of your career, like, I had a transition that did not last very long at all, and I didn't put that. If people asked me about the gap or whatever it was, I just addressed it. But there was no reason to, because it took up space. It didn't add any value to my resume, and it just, if anything, took away from everything else.
Yeah, and I do agree that, like, if it's your first job and it lasts 6 months, okay, fine. That's your first job. You weren't getting paid very much, so you made a move. that's fine. And there's other scenarios where obviously if there's harassment, anything, like you just got to get out of there. There are plenty of companies out there that will you'll interview great, you'll feel great, and then when you get on board, it's just either super high pressure. It's something that I think you had brought this up before we started, maybe, or maybe while we were talking, I just don't remember. With the job is something different than what you interviewed for or what you were told, so you got to get out of there. But just things like that, they will happen. Like that happens. I've had with LMI Aerospace where we met.
Yeah.
I don't have that on my profile. I don't have that on my resume because it was a contract job. It was the shittiest situation I had ever been in, and I was using it as a transition to start my own business, and so I took it off, but that's where we met,
Yeah.
but it's not on any of my shit only because it's a couple of months,
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes it happens where people run into a string of bad luck, right? So it's one of these 6-month, 9-month, 6-month in all three positions, and it could be, you went to go work for a startup, and all of a sudden the startup started laying people off, and then the next position was incredibly shitty, and that whatever it is, like there are people that it looks like they're job hoppy, and it sucks for them, but there are things you can do, right? Like if it's understandable and if it's stuff that's out of your control, put that on your resume, right?
Yeah.
It's different if you just like didn't like the job, didn't like the manager, whatever, right? But if you have things to back it up to where company lost funding, they had massive layoffs, or anything that's completely out of your control, under you have your title, you have the company, you have your title, you have the dates. Next to the dates,
right,
put your reason for leaving so that when somebody's looking at your resume, they can at least see that.
Yeah, and that's a key. That's a key, guys. So put that on your resume because if they see it, they're still likely to call you. If they don't have anything, they're just assuming that something crazy happened, you're crazy, maybe you're not good, whatever. So if you put that explanation on your resume, it's going to lead you to a phone call from a recruiter or a hiring manager. And so I kind of wanted to flip it over, though, because I don't want to say that not jumping jobs, or I guess, on the flip side, I do think it's good to jump after you've put in 1.5, 2 years of that first job or that second job or that third job. And I actually looked at your LinkedIn profile just before we started, and you were at 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. So it's funny is I was also at 2 years, 2 years, 2 years before I started my company. So I think we both kind of had the same mindset, maybe, and you can tell about your experience. But for me, it was 2 years. I started. I wasn't getting paid very much. I think my first job was $12 an hour. So I did that for like a year and a half, really. And then it was like, okay, well, I have some skills, and I'm not going to get the raise because they're going to pay me as if I didn't have the skills when I first started. And so I'm going to make a move, and I'm going to make more money. So I got a $20,000 raise by moving jobs from that job to another job. Did that for 2 years. Picked up some more skills, learned a lot more stuff, and then I got another $20,000 raise.
So to pause you right there, and that's actually a good point, and one that I wanted to make. The sticking for a job for at least a year or two isn't just to make it look good on your resume, especially if you're new in your career. If you're only at a position for 6 months, 9 months, 3 months, whatever it is, you're not in a spot where you're going to make an impact, meaning you're not in a spot where you're going to be learning and actually developing new skills. You're just going to start something, stop. Start something, stop. So you don't get to pick up enough momentum to make yourself truly marketable.
Yeah, and I do want to say, like, I really want to iterate that just because you're not satisfied from, like, you're not getting, like, fulfillment, like, I do think that you should move jobs and find something that truly makes you happy. But in your first year or two, like, eat shit. Like, learn everything you can. Realize that what job you're working in is an experience and that there's something to be learned, whether you're washing dishes or whatever. Like, there's something that you can learn that can add to your skill set. And so that's why it's important to put in at least a year, year and a half, 2 years, is because, don't bitch out, basically, right? Like, don't just quit because, I didn't like it. Stick with it. Start looking for another job. Have a job lined up before you leave that job, in my opinion. Financially, it's just better.
Yeah.
But, don't just quit because, or move around because, hey, I didn't want to deal with it. that wasn't my thing or whatever. Like, grab those skills, stick it out for at least that year and a half, 2 years, then make your move. And you're going to get paid for it too. You're going to make a lot more money. Where if you're jumping 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, you might get a job, but it's probably going to be a shitty job that hires shitty people because they can't find anybody with a solid work history, maybe.
Yeah, and one, like I said, you're not learning anything. Like, in order to move from one job to another, the idea is to build up a resume. You have nothing built. You haven't learned any skills, and I kind of already talked about that. And don't just obviously do it for the money, right? What you were saying, eat shit for a little bit, take that. And if you do, in my opinion, if you do see somebody with all of those hops, the biggest mistake that they're making is not learning. Like, they'll get out of a position, they'll either get fired or they'll quit, and then they're not taking that information and using it to kind of carve out what does work. So even though something doesn't work out, it doesn't mean it was a waste of time. It could, at the very minimum, be used to help outline like what it is that you are looking for.
Yeah, and so why did you make your moves like throughout your career?
So first one was they were cutting commissions. It was turning a little bit volatile. Actually, the company's like doing really successful now, but there was kind of a dipping point for them. So I made a transition, and then that's when I got into recruiting. And then I moved from that company, and I'll talk in more detail about this in a different podcast, but I moved back from that company because I felt like I wasn't where I needed to be financially, right?
Yeah.
And then I took the job at Purina, and obviously there was one more in between that, but it wasn't necessarily I was trying to like move and leverage. It was more so it was my time on those. I guess I could say.
I mean, you just get bored at some point.
Yeah, I got bored at some point, but at some point, like the one where I didn't feel like I was where I needed to be financially. I had always kind of thought, like, after the first year, I love the people, I love the culture, but I was always like, okay, I need to make more money. Like, maybe I'll look, and I ended up looking at a time where I was, I had that resume built up to where, like, my bullets on there was showing my progression and, like, what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it was okay, they hired me for $12 an hour. But guess what? When they hired me, I was worth $12 an hour. But after a year, I'm no longer worth $12 an hour because I have all the skills that I had to develop over that time. And so I know that if I go interview with somebody else, they're going to pay me more. And so mine was financially motivated, but I also had a situation where I wanted to grow financially fairly quickly with a kid on the way and whatnot. So, for me, it was financially motivated with, hey, my goal is to make $20,000 more every year for the next 4 years or whatever, 5 years. And I did it. I think there was only 1 year that I didn't actually go up. It was either the same, but 4 out of the 5 years I ended up getting the $20,000 increase. So not bad.
See, opposite for me. So I made not majority of my money, but I made more than I could have ever really thought I could my first job.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. So there was a time where I was getting, and this is right out of college, like building up to like $10,000 paychecks in a month. And then I went down, learned a new industry, new whatever, and honestly didn't get back to that point until I broke away on my own.
Really? Mm-hmm. What was your first job? What was that job?
Sales. So it was for an ADT authorized dealer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. You've said that like 8 times on different podcasts. No, that's interesting.
You don't listen.
I don't remember. I listen. Yeah. I have a horrible memory, by the way. I only think of the future, not of the past.
There you go. That's a good way to put it.
I really, even my wife, gives me shit over me not remembering. Like, hey, we got to do something Saturday. Sorry.
Yeah. For being in recruiting, I'm not the best with names.
Yeah. Well, I think that the more names you look at, the more they blend together. So maybe true. That's why. So, anything else on this?
No. I mean,
this is a short one, guys. We know, but we think it's important because
just highlighting the points. It's okay to move positions if you're realizing that it's not working out quickly, but you need to use that to take the next step. Use that to learn where it is that you want to go next, as opposed to just, Okay, I'm going to quit. Oh, shit, I got to find another job. I'll take whatever's out there. Oh, shit, this sucks too. I'm going to quit this. I'm going to, whatever, right? Like, use it to learn. And then if you find yourself in that position over and over again, it's like, okay, it's time to just eat shit up for a little bit, learn some skills, and realize that it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And build up a resume.
Yeah, build your resume. And this isn't for, just so everybody knows, like, the reason why we want to bring this up is because this doesn't really pertain to you today, but 8 years from now, when you're 3 jobs in and you're going for a manager role or you're trying to grow or whatever, they are going to look at that shit. And so just getting ahead of it is the whole point of this podcast, is how can we set you guys up for that type of success with your careers. And so you might not think of this, but as you're starting to hop jobs, we just wanted to give you our side of the table, what that looks like, and that was the point of this episode. So that's all we got. I know this was only about 15 minutes today, but it's important. So fuck it.
Yeah. What needed to be said was said.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, again, first episode that should be on YouTube. I don't know much about it. We'll have Madeline set that up, but check us out on YouTube. Do you want to start doing Instagram? You guys want to follow us on Instagram? Dan_Greiner, Greiner 87 at
yahoo.com.
Dan Greiner. Yeah, see, showing my age.
Yep. Matt Kresko, MATTKRESKO. That's me.
So check us out. We'll start putting out some content there too. But yeah, thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.